Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we're going to be talking about how this Switch to Nintendo Direct situation might actually be a lot more interesting than you think. So I figured this would be a good topic today because right now a lot of people are disappointed or underwhelmed that a Nintendo Direct has yet to have been announced for this summer. And myself personally, I've been thinking that we would have gotten one by this point. My prediction has been, if not in June, before Bonanza comes out in July, and here we are, fairly late into the day of Wednesday, and nothing's been announced yet, so it doesn't look like we're getting a general direct before the release of Bonanza. It doesn't look like, of course, Nintendo has been known to subvert our expectations. I mean, simply considering the fact that we've gotten to this point and no kind of big direct has been announced, I think speaks to that. But what I really want to get into here today is taking a closer look into this overall situation regarding how Nintendo's handling this year, and considering what they might be doing, because I think once it's all said and done, while right now it might be a little frustrating, a little concerning, I think what Nintendo may have planned may ultimately end up being more compelling than we would have thought, and ultimately pretty exciting. And this does tie a lot into the kinds of games we expect to see from Nintendo between the months of September through December, and it might be more than what you're thinking. So that's what I'd like to dive further into today. But before going forward, let me point out I have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be appreciated. So the first thing I want to clear up here, because I've seen so many people talking about this, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is probably not getting delayed. Like, I don't think we should be really worried about this. So, why do I not think we should be worried about this at all? Well, firstly, this game has maintained its 2025 release timing since it was shown off for the first time truly in last year's Summer Direct. So for over a year already, Nintendo has maintained this 2025 release window. But also, Prime 4 has been featured in Switch 2 marketing. It was a part of the Switch 2 experience events. We are seeing promotional material. I don't think this game would be advertised in this way if it wasn't part of this year's lineup. Now, a few weeks ago, a lot of people were freaking out because there was this promotional piece of material out in a London subway for Metroid Prime 4 that said it was out now. Now, obviously, this was a mistake. This has since been corrected. But what a lot of people missed about this promotional material is that it also included a new rating for Metroid Prime 4. And so this is actually good news. The fact that the game has been rated bodes quite well for it to not be delayed. Typically, when a game gets rated, it doesn't get delayed immediately afterwards. That's pretty unlikely. That all said, while I think Prime 4 is safely still coming out this year, when is it coming out this year? That we don't know. That's something we wanted to find out in a Nintendo Direct. But since we haven't gotten a Direct yet, some people are thinking we're not going to be getting a Direct for a while more, and not just a few weeks from now, like late July, as what we've considered as another option if we didn't get one by this point. Some people think we may have to wait all the way until September, and if that's the case, when do we get the release date for Metroid Prime 4? Maybe it's just some sort of shall drop announcement. I don't think that's the likely scenario here. I think Nintendo's going to treat Metroid Prime 4 with more care, which maybe you can spin as a reason to think that there still will be some sort of bigger direct soon, and that's a possibility, we'll see. But another possibility is that maybe Nintendo's going to announce at some point that there's going to be some sort of big Metroid Prime 4 Direct. And if they do something like that, where they announce the release date, then we don't really need a big direct to have a release date announced for Prime 4, and maybe they can then get away with doing this, a couple social media announcements, and a partner showcase. That's a possibility. Something that does need to happen is that we do need to get a series of third-party announcements pretty darn soon. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, we still don't have a release date for this yet. Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, we still don't have a release date for this yet. Assassin's Creed Shadows has been rated for Switch 2, meaning it's supposed to come. Hasn't been announced yet. And then we even saw a GameStop leak, a literal listing of Crimson Desert for Switch 2, hasn't been announced yet. And we went through Summer Games Fest without any sort of third-party announcement for Switch 2. There is a very strong need for a variety of third-party announcements, so if there's not going to be some sort of big general direct in this month of July, then they probably need to have a partner showcase fairly soon, if not by the end of July, then sometime in August at the very latest. And to be honest, given how long we've waited for more major third-party announcements, I'm kind of thinking that even then might be too long of a wait. But if we do end up getting a partner showcase in the month of August, then what does that mean for a big general in September? Some people are assuming we're not going to get a summer direct, and so maybe we will have to wait all the way until September for a big September direct. But if we get a partner showcase in August, then that might mean we're probably not getting a big general in September. I'll tell you that the more and more I rack my brain over this entire situation, I can actually see a scenario where we do not get a traditional general September Nintendo Direct. But I say that only because I see a scenario where Nintendo might do something different that could be equally, if not more, exciting. So when thinking about games that need to be announced, we look at the months September through December. We don't really know much about what's happening during this period of time. We know Metroid Prime 4 is slated for this year. We know Kirby Air Riders is slated for this year, but we've seen no gameplay for it yet. And Pokemon Legends EA is coming out October 16th. These 3 games are not enough. Now, we also know about Splatoon Raiders, which has no release date yet. And then we also have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is only slated for this winter, which might mean not this year and early next year instead. And so we're looking at a situation right now where currently only 3 games from Nintendo are confirmed to come out this year, and considering what's been announced so far, in August we're getting Dragon Drive and Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Starcross World, so that's probably it for August releases. It seems like there needs to be a little bit more. Now, some people might argue it's just going to be one more game, and it might just be clarification on Hyrule Warriors coming out this year, possibly. When you take a look at Nintendo's release schedule from prior years, you can see how people would start to assume they will basically get just like one game per month. You see Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in January, Fitness Boxing 3 in December, Mario & Luigi November, Jamboree October, Echoes of Wisdom September, MEO August, and so on. For the most part, that's how they seem to handle things. Now you see in May here, they had 2 actual releases in that month, but then there was nothing in April. So it's not exactly one game per month, but they're kind of basically averaging 12 published titles per month in a year, something close to that. But that's not really the full picture. Let's consider that 2024 was a waning year for Switch 1, right? When we look at other years, during the holiday period, it's actually a little bit more densely packed. So in November of 2023, we had Mario RPG and WarioWare Move It. And then in October of 2023, we had Mario Wonder and Detective Pikachu Returns. 4 published Nintendo titles in the months of October and November. And this isn't the only time something like this has happened. Looking at the year prior, 2022, let me go over a page here, we see we got Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in November and Bayonetta 3 in October. So right there it seems like it's just one game per month, but what some people might be missing here, because it's not listed on this site, is we had actually also gotten Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope October of 2022. So there were actually 3 pretty big major games in this period of time for Nintendo fans. And then looking at 2021, in November we had Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, also Shin Megami Tensei 5, which is published in some regions by Nintendo, a huge timed exclusive in November as well. And then in October we had Mario Party Superstars and Metroid Dread. So I bring up these last few years here to show that, yes, the October-November periods oftentimes have more than one game per month, 3 to 4. And when we consider that this is the launch year of Switch 2, that's even more reason to think that Nintendo's going to go harder in terms of putting out more games during this period of time, not less. And so taking a look at what Nintendo has announced for this year in terms of exclusive Switch 2 games, after Bonanza, it's Kirby Air Riders slated for 2025. Dragon Drive is an eShop only title for just $20 coming out in August. This is the last big exclusive that's confirmed for this year. Age of Imprisonment might not come out this year. That remains to be seen. And so I look at this and I also consider the history of Nintendo October and November months, and I think there's gotta be some more announcements. Now, something else to consider here are the Switch 2 editions, because that's also a big part of the equation. But as you also notice, they put out Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 editions alongside Mario Kart and Welcome Tour for June. In July, we're getting Mario Party Jamboree plus TV set for alongside Bonanza. In August, we have Kirby the Forgotten Land plus Starcross World with Dragon Drive, as we just mentioned. And then in September, there's nothing currently announced. Legends EA in October, and then Metroid Prime 4 is here listed afterwards, although that does not necessarily mean it will be coming out afterwards. And so I'm pointing this out here because we have a little bit of a pattern where Nintendo's actually putting out more than one release per month. These first 3 months, it's been some sort of exclusive and some sort of Switch 2 edition. Now, in the case of Legends EA and Prime 4, yes, they are Switch 2 editions, but they're also brand new titles. So Nintendo might treat the situation surrounding those a little bit differently, but also since we are talking about maybe the October-November period here, there probably will still be something else coming out alongside these games, at least one more game fitted into that period of time there. So what kinds of releases can Nintendo use to fill up the holiday season here? Maybe it's not going to be any other big sort of new exclusive title for Switch 2, although I still think there's a pretty good chance we at least get one more. But if we have to wait even longer for a bigger direct, that's less time to market something like that, and will then have me thinking maybe there isn't something like that. But if that ends up being the case, I still see a scenario where we may actually have some other announcements here. So going back to Metroid Prime 4, we need to get a release date for this game. Maybe, similar to Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, there will be a dedicated Nintendo Direct to Metroid Prime 4. I've made this point before, but when you look at 2017, there were a lot of game-specific Nintendo Directs, one for Xenoblade, Splatoon, ARMS, one for Animal Crossing Mobile, there was a Fire Emblem Direct as well, alongside the general directs and other bigger presentations for that year. Looking at this year so far, it's starting to look pretty similar. We have some big general directs, and we also have some game-specific directs in Mario Kart World and Bonanza. I think there's going to be more, at least one more game-specific direct, and considering what we know about for this year, Metroid Prime 4 seems to make the most sense. And when we also consider that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 have been rumored for a long time, and many people think they should come out before Prime 4 comes out, I agree, those might tie into a direct presentation like this. And so there's not going to be a big general presentation. Maybe we have this Prime 4 Direct, where they announce the release timing for Prime 4 and all these different details we need to learn about this game, give it the big blowout, similar to what they've done with the Bonanza Direct. But that won't be enough. Yeah, the addition of Metroid Prime 2 and 3 coming to Switch 1 and Switch 2 will help a little bit, but those are old games, and from what many are expecting, they're likely not going to be big, ambitious remasters here. They're going to be more subtle. Maybe something more along the lines of what they did with Pikmin 1 and 2 before Pikmin 4 came out. But considering how there's currently nothing announced for September, there's no Switch 2 edition announced for September, we have an interesting gap there. And that September is Mario's anniversary, where historically we've gotten a lot of major announcements in these big 5-year increments. I think there's a decent possibility that if we're not getting a big general, instead what we're getting is a Mario 40th Anniversary Direct. And in there, they may confirm the rumored Galaxy 2 remaster to be shadow dropped, or to be coming out a few weeks later, or perhaps even a little bit later for the October-November period. A big boy Galaxy 2 remaster might really help to fill up the lineup here. It won't exactly be the big brand new 3D Mario, but given that we have Donkey Kong Bonanza and the style of the Galaxy games that are more linear in their approach, I think it can actually offer some pretty decent variety to the overall slate of games for this year. And if Galaxy 2 is being remastered on its own, unlike 3D All-Stars, there was a collection of 3 slightly enhanced 3D Mario games, they may go beyond just even more improved visuals, they might even include some new content in there. We have been figuring that Yoshi's going to play a larger role with this anniversary, given that it's also an anniversary time for Super Mario World and Yoshi's going to be playing a role with the movie and all. Maybe there's some sort of new content in this rumored Galaxy 2 remaster that has more to do with Yoshi, a more Yoshi-focused set of new levels, or worlds, something like that. But if this possible 40th Anniversary Direct goes anything like how they handled the 35th Anniversary Direct, it wouldn't just be an announcement of one game, but several, to come out not just for its respective year, but also a little bit afterwards as well. And so if we're not getting a general direct, alongside some social media announcements of what we already know about early next year, like Tamagotchi Life and Rhythm Heaven, whatever they announce in this 40th Anniversary Direct could carry us over into early next year. Maybe they could announce Luigi's Mansion 4, for example, which would be absolutely huge. And I'm going to say this because I know people will ask, I do think 3D Mario is not that far off. I think it's, at this point, most likely like a holiday 2026 title. And maybe they would announce or tease this 3D Mario in a Mario Anniversary Direct, but I don't think it would be the big focus. Just because we would have to be waiting a little bit longer for it to come out. Now, what do I actually think is going to go down? I would love to say we're going to get a big general, and we're still going to get a Mario 40th Anniversary Direct, and also a Metroid Prime 4 Direct. Maybe that is all possible, but I do feel like something has to give here. Because the later we get into July, the less likely I think it is that we're going to have 2 more General Directs for this year alongside more game-specific Directs as well. Maybe we're looking at 1 more General Direct, and we still have some of these game-specific Directs, like in a Prime 4 Direct, and maybe also a Mario 40th Anniversary Direct. These are possibilities. The main thing I'm going to stick to here is that announcements still need to be made, whatever form they come in, they still need to be made. This is the launch year for Switch 2. This is not the time for Nintendo to dial it back and hold back on a whole bunch of announcements. No, they're going to continue to market and push their games throughout the year. There are going to be big reveals and announcements. It really just comes down to how they handle and organize this all. That's the real mystery here. To me, it's an interesting puzzle, but what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.